It all began with a single look, one of those quiet, electric moments when time itself seems to stop. It was during a charity gala in Rome, a night filled with cameras, laughter, and the illusion of perfection. CanYaman, dressed in a black suit that perfectly framed his tall, commanding figure, had attended only to support his longtime friend Luca, a man he had known for over a decade. Luca was the kind of person who had been beside Can long before the fame, through auditions, rejections, and heartbreaks. That night, however, something felt different. When Can's eyes met hers, everything else faded into silence. Sarah Bluma, Luca's wife. Sarah had always been part of their circle, but in the background. Elegant, composed, and kind, she had built her life around her husband and their little boy. Yet that evening, there was something new in her presence. Maybe it was the way her smile lingered too long, or the way her gaze met Can's across the crowd, holding for just a second too many. No one noticed, or at least, that's what they thought. But Can did. He noticed every heartbeat, every breath that passed between them. The night went on. The photographers clicked endlessly, the champagne flowed, and laughter echoed through the marble hall. But inside, Can was fighting something he hadn't felt in years, a pull so powerful it frightened him. He knew it was wrong. She was married. She had a child. And most importantly, she was the wife of his closest friend. But forbidden things have a strange way of finding light in the dark. When the gala ended, Luca went ahead to speak with the producer, leaving Sarah waiting near the exit. Can approached, hesitant but drawn by something beyond logic. "You looked beautiful tonight," he said softly, almost as if the words slipped out without his permission. Sarah turned, surprised. For a second, her expression was unreadable, caught between gratitude and guilt. "Thank you," she whispered. "Luca was so proud to see you here. It means a lot to him." Can nodded, but there was a storm in his eyes. "And to you?" he asked quietly. Sarah didn't answer. The silence between them was deafening, filled with everything neither dared to say. Then Luca called her name from across the hall, breaking the moment like glass shattering on stone. She turned away, her perfume lingering in the air as she left. That night, Can couldn't sleep. He kept replaying that look, that single heartbeat that changed everything. He told himself it was nothing, a moment of weakness, an illusion created by loneliness. But deep down, he knew. Something had begun. Something he couldn't stop, even if he wanted to. And somewhere, in the quiet of her home, Sarah was lying awake too. Her husband asleep beside her, their child dreaming peacefully, but her mind was with someone else. With the man she should never have looked at that way. With the man who wasn't hers. Days turned into weeks, but that night in Rome refused to fade. Can tried to bury it under his busy schedule, interviews, photo shoots, rehearsals, endless flights between Istanbul and Milan. Yet every time he saw Sarah's name pop up on Luca's phone, or heard her voice in the background when they talked, his chest tightened. He didn't understand why. She wasn't his. She was never supposed to be his. But the heart rarely listens to what reason commands. Sarah, on the other hand, was fighting a quiet war within herself. To everyone around her, she seemed the perfect wife, patient, elegant, always smiling. But inside, she was exhausted. Her marriage to Luca had become something mechanical, built on routine rather than love. They rarely spoke about anything beyond their child or the next event they had to attend. There were no late-night talks anymore, no laughter that filled the kitchen like before. The love that once held them together had turned into polite silence. And then came Can, kind, attentive, yet distant in a way that made her curious. He was a man used to being seen, but not often understood. When he laughed, it felt sincere. When he looked at her, it felt real. It wasn't lust. It was something slower, heavier, like a memory that didn't belong to them yet. She tried to convince herself that what she felt was admiration, nothing more. But she knew better. One afternoon, Luca invited Can over for dinner. "It's been too long," he said cheerfully. "Sarah's making your favorite, risotto with truffle." Ken hesitated. He wanted to say no. Every part of him screamed that it was a bad idea. But refusing would raise questions, and so he agreed. That evening, as he arrived at their apartment overlooking the Tiber River, the scent of cooking filled the air. Sarah greeted him at the door, her smile polite but nervous. "It's good to see you again," she said softly. Ken nodded, but his pulse was racing. Luca welcomed him in with his usual warmth, completely unaware of the undercurrent between his two guests. Dinner was almost unbearable. Every word, every shared glance carried hidden meanings. When Luca left the room to take a phone call, the silence returned, the same silence that had haunted them since the gala. Sarah finally spoke, her voice low. "You shouldn't have come." "I know," Ken replied, his eyes locked on hers. "But if I hadn't, I would have spent the whole night thinking about what it would have been like." Her breath caught. "Ken, this isn't right," she said, more to herself than to him. He nodded slowly. "No, it's not. But tell me, does it feel wrong?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. Because for the first time in years, she felt seen, truly seen. Not as Luca's wife, not as someone's mother, but as a woman. A woman who was still capable of being desired, of being remembered. When Luca returned, everything looked normal again. Laughter, dessert, polite goodbyes. But when Ken left that night, his hand brushed against hers for just a second, and in that second, everything changed. A spark became a fire. As he walked into the cold Roman night, Ken knew he was standing on the edge of something dangerous. But it was too late. The line between right and wrong had blurred. And in her room later that night, Sarah stood by the window, her reflection faint against the city lights. Her heart was racing. For years, she had lived a life of control and order. But now, one forbidden touch had awakened everything she thought she'd buried forever. The next morning, Ken tried to act as though nothing had happened. He went through his usual routine, the gym, a few business calls, a script reading, but his mind refused to obey. Every word Sarah had said echoed in his head like a haunting refrain, *, this isn't right. *, yet her eyes had told a different story. They had told him that she had felt it too. He told himself he wouldn't reach out. He wouldn't cross that line again. But late that night, as he scrolled aimlessly through his phone, he saw her Instagram story, just a picture of Rome's rain-soaked streets, with the caption, *, some nights stay with you forever. * before he realized it, his fingers were already typing. Ken *, do you still think it was wrong? Sarah *, yes. Pause, Sarah *, but I can't stop thinking about it. That was how it began. A conversation that should never have existed. What started as short, polite exchanges turned into long, late-night messages about life, loneliness, and the ache of being misunderstood. Sarah found in Ken someone who listened, who saw her, while Ken found in her a quietness he hadn't felt in years, a reminder of what love used to mean before fame turned everything into a performance. For days, they talked without meeting. But one afternoon, when a commercial shoot was cancelled, Ken found himself wandering near the park where Sarah often took her son. He didn't plan it, or so he told himself. Then, almost like fate, he saw her sitting on a bench, her child playing with a toy car nearby. Their eyes met. There was surprise, but also something else, acceptance. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered as he approached. "Neither should you," he replied with a faint, sad smile. They talked quietly for a few minutes about ordinary things, the weather, the film he was working on, her son's school, all while pretending their hearts weren't breaking rules with every word. When the boy ran toward his mother, Ken crouched down to pick up the toy car he had dropped. For a brief second, his fingers brushed Sarah's again. She froze. Her pulse quickened, and she whispered, "He likes you." Ken smiled softly. "That makes one of us," he said, his tone carrying a meaning she couldn't ignore. That night, Sarah didn't answer any of his messages. Hours turned into silence. Ken felt the weight of what they were doing, the betrayal it represented. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, staring out over the city lights, wondering if he had already lost her before anything truly began. But then, at 1:37 a.m., his phone lit up. Sarah asterisk, you looked tired today. Ken asterisk, I'm tired of pretending. Sarah asterisk, me too. The message hung between them like a confession neither could take back. From that night on, they stopped pretending. Yet in another corner of Rome, Luca was awake too. He wasn't suspicious yet, but he had noticed a change, in Sarah's eyes, in her laughter, in the way she seemed distracted during dinner. Everything okay? He asked gently. You seem far away lately. Sarah forced a smile. Just tired, she said. But her heart was beating so fast she thought he might hear it. And Ken, lying in bed miles away, closed his eyes, knowing the path ahead was dangerous, maybe even destructive. But some loves, no matter how wrong, refuse to die quietly. The morning after their secret messages turned into something deeper, life continued as if nothing had changed, at least on the surface. Ken went to his set, surrounded by cameras, makeup artists, and fans screaming his name. Sarah continued her daily life, breakfast with her son, errands, meetings. But under that calm exterior, both carried the same burning secret, a love that should never exist. They had promised each other to keep their distance. No meetings, Sarah had written. No risks. But promises made in the dark rarely survive the light of day. A few days later, a storm hit Rome. Rain fell endlessly, turning the streets into rivers of reflection. Sarah's car broke down near Via del Corso while she was on her way to a foundation meeting. She called her husband first, no answer. Out of instinct, without even realizing what she was doing, she texted Can Sarah asterisk my car's dead. I don't know who else to call. Ken asterisk where are you? Sarah asterisk near Piazza Venezia. Ken asterisk stay there. I'm coming. Minutes later, a dark SUV pulled up beside her. The window rolled down, revealing Ken behind the wheel. Get in, he said. She hesitated, glancing around. Someone might see us. He smiled faintly. Then let them. It was supposed to be a simple act of kindness. Just a friend helping another friend. But fate had other plans. A paparazzo, waiting nearby to catch photos of another celebrity, recognized Can's car immediately. He snapped a few quick shots, Sarah entering the vehicle, Can's hand brushing her arm, the two driving off together. He didn't know who the woman was yet, but he would find out soon enough. Inside the car, silence hung heavy. The sound of rain filled the space between them. You shouldn't have come, Sarah murmured. And leave you there alone? No chance. She turned toward him, her voice trembling. You make it impossible to forget you. Ken looked straight ahead. And you make it impossible to stop trying. The moment felt suspended in time. When the rain eased, Ken parked near her house. They didn't speak. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, everything else disappeared. The rules, the guilt, the world outside. His hand reached for hers. She didn't pull away. The connection was electric, inevitable. Then her phone buzzed. It was Luca. Reality came crashing back. She pulled her hand back and whispered, we can't keep doing this. Ken exhaled slowly, nodding. I know. But tell me, if you could start over, would you? Tears filled her eyes. You shouldn't ask questions you already know the answer to. The next morning, those photos appeared on a small gossip blog. The headline read, Mystery woman seen with CanYaman, late night ride in the rain. It didn't name her, not yet, but the damage had already begun. Luca saw it at breakfast. Look at this, he said, laughing as he showed Sarah the picture on his phone. The media never leaves him alone. Poor guy. Sarah forced a smile, her hands trembling as she poured coffee. Yeah, poor guy. She excused herself, locking herself in the bathroom. Staring at her reflection, she whispered to herself, this is getting out of control. But even as she said it, she knew she wouldn't stop. That evening, Ken received a message. Sarah asterisk, they took photos. Ken asterisk, I know. Sarah asterisk, Luca doesn't suspect. Not yet. Ken asterisk, then we have to be careful. Sarah asterisk, careful? It's too late for that. And she was right. Because once love crosses the line, there's no going back, only forward, into the storm. By the end of the week, the entire city was whispering. The photos had spread everywhere. First through gossip blogs, then through TV talk shows, and finally across every social platform. Asterisk, who was the mysterious woman in CanYaman's car? Asterisk headlines screamed it, dissecting every blurred image, every gesture. It didn't take long for someone to identify her. A journalist recognized Sarah from an old charity event photo with Luca. The caption said it all. Asterisk, the woman beside actor CanYaman appears to be Sarah Bluma, wife of producer Luca D. Asterisk, overnight, their secret became the scandal of the year. Reporters camped outside Luca and Sarah's home. Cameras followed Ken from his apartment to his car, shouting questions he refused to answer. His team begged him to make a statement, to deny everything. But he couldn't. Because denying it would mean erasing what he felt, and even if it destroyed him, he couldn't lie to himself. Sarah, trapped inside her house, watched her world crumble. Her husband's silence was the worst part. Luca hadn't shouted, hadn't accused. He just stopped speaking. The quiet between them was unbearable. One night, as their son slept, he finally looked at her and asked, "Is it true?" She froze. There was no point lying anymore. "I never meant for it to happen," she whispered. "That's not what I asked." His voice was steady, but his eyes were full of pain. "Do you love him?" She tried to speak, but her throat closed. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Silence was her answer. Luca stood there for a long moment, then simply said, "Then you've already chosen." The next morning, Sarah packed a small bag and left. She didn't go to Can's house, not yet. She needed to think, to breathe. But she knew she couldn't undo what had been done. She had crossed a line that love had drawn for her long before reason could intervene. Meanwhile, Ken was facing his own storm. His manager slammed papers on his desk, lost contracts, cancelled interviews, broken deals. "You've destroyed your image for a married woman," he shouted. Ken didn't respond. He stared at the window, exhausted, eyes empty. "Maybe my image needed to be destroyed," he said quietly. That evening, as the sun set over Rome, Sarah appeared at his door. Her hair was damp from the rain, her eyes swollen from crying. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ken whispered, "You shouldn't have come." "I had nowhere else to go," she said. He stepped closer. "If you stay, you lose everything." She smiled faintly, brokenly. "Then maybe it's time I find out what everything really means." He reached for her hand. The city outside was roaring with judgment, but inside that room, there was only silence, the kind of silence that belongs to two souls who have already lost too much to turn back. They spent hours talking, not about the future, but about what had brought them there: loneliness, love, guilt, and fate. In the end, they both knew the truth: love doesn't always arrive in the right form, or at the right time. Sometimes it comes disguised as a mistake, only to show you who you really are. Weeks later, Ken was seen leaving Rome. The tabloids claimed he fled. Others said he left to start over. Sarah, too, disappeared from public life. Luca filed for separation quietly, protecting their son from the chaos. But the story didn't end with a press release. Because somewhere, far from cameras and headlines, two hearts that were never supposed to meet still beat to the same rhythm, quietly, secretly, painfully alive. And though the world would call it betrayal, they knew what it truly was: a forbidden love that refused to die.